Welcome to a special edition of the Post Whistle Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Hughes, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest surprises of the 2020 NFL season. They just defeated the Jaguars 27-3 in dominant fashion to remain undefeated. That's right, I'm talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are now 10-0 this season and are the only unbeaten team left in the NFL. Let's start off by recapping last weekend's total takeover in Jacksonville. The Steelers' defense was actually shaky to start this game. You're going to see right here, Jaguars' backup quarterback, Jeff Lewin, is going to fire into Keelan Cole for a 17-yard completion and a Jacksonville first down. A few plays later, Lewin is going to go back there, but this time it's a dump-off to his running back, James Robinson, who makes a man miss. After about 15 yards, he's pushed out of bounds by Joe Hayden. The start of this game was actually very reminiscent to the 2017 divisional round matchup between these two. Very next play, Robinson's going to get the ball again, but this time on the ground, he's going to get 12 yards on a first down, but the Steelers' defense would finally get a stop and force a 41-yard field goal by Chase McLaughlin, which would split the uprights and give Jacksonville an early 3-0 lead. Following the field goal, however, Jacksonville would try and get cute and attempt an onside kick with Keelan Cole. However, the Steelers fell on top of this ball and started off at the 47-yard line of Jacksonville. The special teams miscue by Jacksonville would not come back to haunt them, however, as Chris Boswell's 46-yard field goal is going to go wide left and no good, giving the ball right back to Jacksonville. On the very next drive, Boswell would redeem himself with a 44-yard field goal to tie the game at 3 apiece. On the very next Steelers drive, the Steelers offense says to themselves they want more than 3 points, so Big Ben is going to launch this ball for a 31-yard touchdown to his rookie standout wide receiver Chase Claypool. It's his 8th receiving touchdown on the season and his 10th total as he continues to make his case for Offensive Rookie of the Year. As you can see, his celebration game is also improving as he, along with the Steelers teammates, sing happy birthday to Juju Smith-Schuster, who just turned 24 last Sunday. Trying to answer back, Jeff Lewin would actually lead the Jaguars down to the red zone, only to get intercepted by Minkah Fitzpatrick, who just continues to make plays for the Steelers defense week in and week out. What a great acquisition he was from the Miami Dolphins last season. Big Ben has specialized in a 2-minute drill throughout the entire course of his career, and this drive was no different as he fires into Deontay Johnson for a first down. It's the second week in a row Deontay has eclipsed 100 yards. A couple plays later, Ben would go right back to his second-year standout receiver, but this ball's going to be broken. Oh, wait, no, he caught it. Johnson caught it. That's going to set up first and goal for the Steelers at the 2-yard line, and you just have to admire the concentration by Johnson on this play. Just incredible. On first and goal, Big Ben is going to hand off to his second-year running back, Benny Snell, who punches in for a 1-yard touchdown to give the Steelers a 17-3 advantage over the Jaguars going into halftime. Trying to put points on the board right before the half, Lewin is going to fire an absolute dime right here, but not to his own teammate. It's going to be intercepted by Terrell Edmunds. It's Edmunds' first interception since Week 3 of the 2018 season. Late in the third quarter, Mike Tomlin rolled his sleeves up and gave the ball to James Conner, who would get the first down and way more on this run, while making Jaguars defensive back DJ Hayden eat dirt on the nasty stiff arm. Mike Tomlin's trust in the 2018 Pro Bowl running back would pay off, as it would set up a Chris Boswell 47-yard field goal to give the Steelers a 20-3 lead. Just gasping fair late in the fourth quarter, on 3rd and 19, Jeff Lewin throws yet another interception to Terrell Edmunds. It was Edmunds' second pick on the day and the third of his career, and that set the Steelers up on the 49-yard line of Jacksonville. Following the takeaway, Big Ben, the Steelers offense, would march right down the field once again, this time throwing a 20-yard touchdown pass to Eric Ebron, who has been a great addition to the Steelers so far this season. Ebron's touchdown will give the Steelers a 27-3 lead late in the fourth. Following the touchdown by Ebron, Jeff Lewin's horrible day would come to an end as he threw his 4th interception on the day, his second to Minkah Fitzpatrick, and that would seal the deal. The Steelers won 27-3, and they advanced to 10-0. The Steelers were supposed to face off against their bitter rivals, the Baltimore Ravens, on Thanksgiving night, but due to the Ravens' carelessness and multiple positive tests for coronavirus, one of those being reigning NFL MVP Lamar Jackson, the game had to be postponed, and they will play on Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time instead. It's also worth noting that former Heisman Trophy winner and 2012 Offensive Rookie of the Year RG3, aka Robert Griffin III, will be starting quarterback for Baltimore. The last time these two teams played was back in Week 8, and the Steelers won that game 28-24, and as is the case with most Steelers-Ravens matchup, it came right down to the wire. Most NFL teams have not been able to stop Lamar Jackson so far to this point in his young NFL career. However, the Steelers have definitely been one of those few exceptions to that. In 2 career starts against the Steelers, Lamar Jackson has 7 turnovers, 5 of those being interceptions, and he also has 2 fumbles lost to go along with that. One of those interceptions was actually the pick 6 to Robert Spillane you just saw a few seconds ago. However, Lamar Jackson isn't the only quarterback so far who's been a victim to the Steelers' defense this season. The Steelers have also had to play against guys like Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz, Ryan Tannehill, and Joe Burrow. All of those quarterbacks are really good, and the Steelers have done a great job playing against them. Now, if you still believe they played against subpar competition for most of the year, you're wrong. Listen to these numbers I'm about to read off to you. The Steelers' defense is first in points allowed, they're first in yards allowed, first in passing yards, first in rushing touchdowns, first in red zone touchdowns, and first in overall touchdowns, and they're fifth in passing touchdowns given up in rushing yards. And if you're still not impressed, they lead the NFL in sacks by a huge margin with 38, and they also lead the NFL in interceptions with 15, and they're second in total takeaways with 21. Now, I want you to think, most teams don't even put those numbers up in a season, and the Steelers have done all that so far in only 10 games. I know I say it every week on this show, but I'll say it again. The Steelers have the best defense in the NFL, and to be honest, they have 2 Defense Player of the Year candidates, not 1 but 2, those guys being TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick. Let's start off by talking about TJ Watt, who in my opinion should be the frontrunner for Defensive Player of the Year. So far this year, he's tied with Aaron Donald for 3rd in the league in sacks with 9. He's first in the NFL in tackles for loss. He's first in quarterback pressures. He's leading second place by 10, by the way. And he's first in quarterback hits, leading second place by 9. If you're putting up numbers like that while getting held on every single play, not getting any calls to go your way, while being way undersized compared to most of these offensive tackles he's going against, I'm sorry, he deserves Defense Player of the Year this year. I know some of you are probably saying, oh, well, you're just a biased Steelers fan, that's why you're saying that. Well, go back and watch all the games, go watch every single defensive snap, and then come back to me. He honestly deserved to win the award last year too, but he got robbed. However, I think this year will be different. I think he will get it just because the Steelers are 10-0. They have the best defense, and he's been the driving force of that defense, so I think he has a really good shot to win his first Defense Player of the Year. With all that being said, let's talk about the other guy I mentioned, which would be Minkah Fitzpatrick. So far this year, he has 4 interceptions, which is tied for first. He has a forced fumble, and he's only been targeted 10 times, and he's only allowed 5 receptions so far. I know I said a couple seconds ago that I believe TJ Watt's the driving force of this defense. However, you could make the case that Minkah is the most valuable player on the defense. The reason I say that is because if you look at the Steelers' defense before Minkah got traded there after week 2 of last year, they've honestly been very disappointing, especially the secondary, since I want to say 2013 when Troy Polamalu, he started to get old, and the rest of that defense started to get old, and they all retired. And after all those guys retired, the secondary was pretty much left with Mike Mitchell, Ross Cockrell, Antoine Blake, Artie Burns, and many other guys who it really just pains me to say their name because of how horrible they were. You know, luckily for the Steelers, they were able to sign Joe Hayden in 2017. They drafted Terrell Evans in 2018, who's been having his best year so far this year. And they signed Steven Nelson in 2019, who's statistically been one of the best corners in the NFL. But even after acquiring all those guys, they were still missing that one piece that would just put their defense over the top, and that's where Minkah Fitzpatrick comes in. Ever since week 3 of last season, when the Steelers acquired Minkah, the Steelers have led the NFL in total defense. They're number 1 in pass defense, number 1 in takeaways, and number 1 in points allowed. That really just tells you all you need to know right there about how special and how valuable Minkah is to the Steelers. The Steelers went from an okay defense to the best defense in the NFL in 1 week. Now, let's talk about another main reason why the Steelers have been so successful this year. That reason being the return of Ben Roethlisberger. Now, I said the Steelers this year would be one of the most dangerous teams in the NFL and a real threat to the Chiefs in the AFC because if you think about it, last season they went 8-8 with Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges starting most of the year, and I thought to myself, you know, if you had Big Ben to the offense on a team with that defense, they have the potential to make some noise. And honestly, they've done just that to this point in the season. Like I mentioned earlier, they're 10-0 and the only unbeaten team left. And I think it's also worth knowing that this year, Big Ben's been taking care of the football. I mean, you see in most years, Big Ben, he throws a lot of interceptions. He's a turnover machine usually. Now with him, the good usually outweighs the bad, obviously. But he just throws some of the stupidest interceptions sometimes. And it's been like that throughout his entire career. But he's been taking care of the football this year. And that's another big reason why the Steelers have been winning so many games. Now, I don't know if I could say I would bet on the Steelers to beat the Chiefs in a playoff game. But you better believe if they were to play each other in the playoffs, the Steelers will give them a run for their money. This is arguably the most complete Steelers team since 2008, and the Steelers won the Super Bowl in 2008, so yeah, stay tuned. That's going to do it for today's special edition of the Post Hustle Podcast. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Eric Hughes. Have a great day, everybody.